Is 2024 Nebraska offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield now an asset to the Nebraska football staff? We discuss next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I'm Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone is with me today on the show. Two people who stayed at Nebraska and had to accept new roles and what their returns say about Matt Rhule's program. Also, how they can come together in 2025 to prove that they made the right choices. Who are we talking about?
We're talking about Marcus Satterfield and Heinrich Haarberg. Both of them talked about yesterday about how, just sort of last year didn't go the way that they had planned it. Obviously,
no, it did not.
Heinrich, upon being basically the starting quarterback at the end of 2023, he had a pretty good understanding of how difficult it was going to be to retain that job, but didn't play much really last year outside of a few gadget plays and doing a couple different things for Nebraska offensively. And then Marcus Satterfield, the buzz really started pretty early because it was left over from the year before. Man, I don't know if this guy's going to work as an offensive coordinator. And then ultimately he was removed as the offensive coordinator about 2/3 of the way through the season. But both of them stayed. As Heinrich Haarberg certainly could have entered the transfer portal and, kind of defined his role and figured out what he wanted to do next. But he stayed, and now he's in the tight end room. And Marcus Satterfield also stayed and is also in the tight end room. He's the tight ends coach now at Nebraska. I'll just say first, Mitch, let's hear from him. How about that? We'll hear from Marcus Satterfield on sort of how last year felt for him and how it feels now going into this season.
We preach every day there's going to be adversity, and what happened to me is no different than a player getting benched or having to go from first team to second team. It's no difference. And I believe in this place. I believe in Nebraska. I believe in everything. When I came here, I still believe it. We got great things ahead of us. I think we can do it, and I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to finish what we started. And I thought it'd be a great example for our guys just to see when you go through some hard stuff, like practice what you preach and just keep coming to work and keep giving it your best every single day.
So, yeah, our apologies if that audio quality is a little low there. But what he said was, I thought it'd be a good, for me to stick around, I thought it'd be a good lesson for our team. And I thought it'd be a good thing to show our team. First blush from me, Mitch, I love that. I really do. I know it's been hard for him and people have been hard on him and we've been hard on him. And he wasn't, it wasn't working as Nebraska's offensive coordinator. But Matt Rhule obviously thinks he could help the staff in some way, shape, or form. So they put him in the tight end room. And I really love what he said. I think it really can be a lesson to show how, you could stick through some difficult things.
Yeah, that was a question, which was worded something like, why did you choose to stay? And he went through first the difficulty of getting demoted from offensive coordinator to tight ends coach and watching Dana Holgorsen come in to take over the offense. And then the acceptance of that and understanding that there was a way for him to move forward. And he later said, we're not going to play any more audio. Like you could hear the keys chopping on the computers out there. I think that was the crowd mic or the audience mic, the media mic. Unfortunately, the footage with Heinrich Haarberg is even more inaudible, so we won't go there. But Satterfield expanded and said, this is the most fun that he's had coaching. And there's a cynical way in this world to look at this. And it should be mentioned that he's working on the final year of a contract that pays him $1.4 million. He's the highest paid assistant coach on the Nebraska staff. So financially, it made sense for Satterfield to stay. But many coaches in his situation would have worked their way out of Lincoln after the demotion that he took. It wouldn't have been that difficult for Marcus Satterfield to just act in a somewhat uncooperative way with Dana Holgorsen. It wouldn't have had to be outwardly rude. He just could have not been a great fit. Nebraska would have fired him in December and then paid him the million plus that he was owed. So it's not like, oh, Satterfield's just doing this because he chose to stay. He chose to be a good assistant coach. He chose to put his heart into this. And he should be recognized for that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree completely. Like, seriously, we can be cynical about things, and there's no doubt about it. He stands a lot to gain for being here at Nebraska for sure. Never got the sense that he's, like one of those vagabond coaches who's just all about the money and are chasing the next promotion and stuff like that. Like, I think he's with Matt Rhule because those two have a good connection. Clearly, how many times have we? I mean, I think this reflects incredibly on Rhule. How many times have we seen it where, I mean, hell, we've seen it here a million times over the last 20 years where, offensive coordinators falling out of favor with the head coach, defensive coordinators falling out of favor with the head coach. They want different things. It's clear that's eventually going to go in a different direction. And then what happens is the relationship deteriorates between the coach and the other coach, the head coach and the coordinator. And they don't talk to each other, and there's power struggle, and somebody else is coming in to encroach on their territory. And so Rhule is, was just straight up with them. It's like, hey, look, we're bringing in Holgorsen. You can stay on the staff if you want, but and if you want to, we'll find a space for you because I like you. And I think you're a good football coach, but you can't be the offensive coordinator anymore. Like I think that really reflects well on both parties to have that, hard conversation, and for him to ultimately stick it out here because, like I said, we've seen it work. We've seen it work the other way 1,000 times at Nebraska.
That's more the norm for sure, for it to go the other way, for coaches just not to be great communicators and for there to be animosity or maybe misunderstandings about why things were done, or other people get involved, like outside forces get involved. We've seen athletic directors stick their fists into that situation and muck it up. So yeah, absolutely. At Nebraska through the years, really every coaching regime that Nebraska's had, going back to Frank Solich, there's been a situation on one side of the ball where there's been somewhat of a rift between the head coach and a coordinator, and it's ended up badly for the coordinator and the head coach. It should be mentioned in the end, it ends up badly for the head coach too. If you force somebody out, or you're not truly upfront about the way that that things need to work together. So part of this is Rhule, because he is that communicator. Part of it is Satterfield being willing to take a step down. And then part of it's Dana Holgorsen too, because he had to agree. If Holgorsen had come in and had a vision about how his offense was going to run, which he did, and took a look at things and, sensed some immediate awkwardness with Satterfield, which was there, and not had an open mind and given him an opportunity to go out and coach and, hey, let's see what happens here with Marcus at the tight end spot. Dana was open to that. And I don't think Rhule would have kept him around if Holgorsen wanted to go a different direction. If Holgorsen was like, hey, I got a guy who's coached tight ends for me that I'd like to bring in, I think Rhule would have probably been like, that's fine. Let's do it. Maybe, yeah.
No, we saw that Rhule deferred to Holgorsen on those staff decisions, and they both came to the decision that, we could keep this guy here. He could be an asset for us.
You think it's a 1 year arrangement? It's 1 year with the salary that he's getting paid this year. If
that's for sure.
If Satterfield sticks around in 2026, he's going to have a restructured contract. But I think that they could maybe make it work long term. I don't think it's just lip service up there. Like we said, he could have been a thorn in Dana's side, and he chose not to do that. and he would have gotten paid and had to do less work for it if he had chosen to take that route. But I think there's a possibility that he's here in 2026. It's probably going to depend a lot on progress at the tight end spot here this year.
Yeah, and people get bent out of shape about the money. They're like, oh, $1.4 million for a tight ends coach. I mean, how many times have we heard that this offseason? Like, it just, I don't know. Forgive me. It just doesn't bother me. Like I think they feel like that Marcus Satterfield is an asset. You have him on the staff. He was under his previous contract. There's no way out of it unless you fire him, and then you have to pay him out anyway, and you have to buy him out of his contract. So like, there's that piece of it. Yeah, I think that they would obviously, depending on how this season goes, be willing to bring him back under different circumstances next year. But I don't think that I don't think the figure, like the number, really stands in the way of much of anything. Nebraska has a gigantic staff, and they have all this money invested in the program, and both the coaching staff and support staff and all these things. So yeah, that for number one, the money doesn't bother me, and number two, no, I would not be surprised if he hung around on the staff for a while. Obviously, depending on how this season goes.
Yeah. With that, let's ask the question when we come back: is the tight end position one of strength? Is it a position of strength for Nebraska? We'll tackle that and also talk about one of Marcus Satterfield's tight ends, Heinrich Haarberg. That's coming up next. But a message right now from Supply House, a sponsor of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trade. Yes, that is Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product information to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of more than 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you will find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros who want an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled pros are already taking advantage. Now is your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com.
All right, welcome back. Connor Happerman Sherman with you here on this Wednesday. Quick mention for Nebraska baseball last night, who grabbed a ranked win at Kansas. A ranked win. There's a theme there with Nebraska baseball, but maybe this will provide some momentum to be able to kick it into gear in conference play.
Huskers are just continuing to wreak havoc with the RPI. Whatever you think might happen based on the numbers, the opposite. Expect the opposite with Nebraska baseball. That's just been the story for a while.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So they're gonna have to stack some wins here. They're gonna have to get consistent in a hurry on the weekends.
Hey, hoops news as well. Fred Hoiberg's team. Well, Fred Hoiberg, one coming and one going, or a couple going. Nick Jankowski and Gavin Griffiths to the transfer portal for Nebraska. And who's coming back? Jamarcus Lawrence, That's favorite, awesome. I think, of a lot of people from 2024. And he's going to be a part of the program again, coming back from a year at Rhode Island.
That's awesome. I love that. That's happened in college hoops and in college football before, where a guy will go back to the original school, but I don't think it's happened at Nebraska yet. So that's pretty cool. And like you said, he's a player that people really enjoyed watching, and were confused that he left. And now I'm even more confused to why he left, to be honest with you.
That'll be an interesting story when we hear from him at some point upon his return. It might be a little while, but he's coming back nonetheless, and will be a crowd favorite for sure, and probably a starter from the beginning for Fred Hoiberg.
All right. Speaking of crowd favorites and people that are coming back, Heinrich Haarberg is both a crowd favorite and someone that is coming back. He's a little bit bigger. There's a little bit more of Heinrich Haarberg. This year he's into the tight end room, and the thing that I appreciate about Heinrich is he kind of just embraces whatever role he's put in with the team. So it's no surprise that he ends up at a different position and is just embracing it and doing everything he can. There's a lot of catching up to do, and there's a lot of things that he has to accomplish before he can get on the field and be an impactful player, I think, for Nebraska at that position. But he's a heck of an athlete. So I think it seems like, reading the tea leaves, that things are going well at that spot for him.
Yeah, he played about 30 reps against Boston College in the Pinstripe Bowl, and talked also on Tuesday about just the practice reps that he got. 50, 60 reps a day for a couple weeks leading up to that game. And those are things that would not have happened if Nebraska had not beaten Wisconsin in November and found its way to 6 victories. So while the 6 wins was really important for the psyche of the program and the mental state of the fan base, just everything in order to keep moving Nebraska forward under Matt Rhule, you start to see some of the actual dividends. And I think a player like Haarberg, a player like Donovan Jones on the defensive side, we saw Quentin Ives in the same kind of a role where he stepped up and had an opportunity to do something in the bowl game. All of those players, the reps they got in the game and the reps they got in the weeks leading up to it, I think are going to end up, and then you can't forget the coaches too. Like John Butler had to devise a game plan for Boston College, so it won't be the first time that he's doing that when Nebraska takes on Cincinnati in August at Arrowhead Stadium. All of those things, I think, will end up rating as probably the most important part of the Pinstripe Bowl experience. More important than like the trip to see the Radio City Rockettes or eat expensive New York food or walk around Times Square in the week after Christmas. So those are nice, but you really start to see the reward with this summer when people aren't doing it for the first time, and Heinrich Haarberg is one of those guys at the top of the list, and it's going to benefit the tight end spot. So I will ask this: are the tight ends a strong position for Nebraska? You have Luke Lindenmeyer, you've got Haarberg, you've got Mac Markway and Carter Nelson coming back from injury. What do you think about this group as a whole?
Man, there's some real wild cards in that group. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're gonna. I think what you get out of Heinrich Haarberg probably depends on the health of the latter two guys that you mentioned there first, with Nelson and Markway. Like, I'm endlessly intrigued in Mac Markway. And that I don't think, he got hurt right before the season started last year. So is that, will he be ready to go, like, especially during fall camp? That's 11 months for a knee, so we'll see what they get out of him. Lindenmeyer is steady, but I think he's got to kind of show that he could be a little bit more versatile in the pass game at this point. So no, I don't think I'd call it a position of strength. It's a position of potential. It's a position of, like, it has a high ceiling, or I guess a relatively high ceiling, but it has probably a pretty low floor as well in terms of what you can get from it, because there's just a lot of kind of question marks, I think, in the room after you lost your top 2 guys from last year.
Yeah, it was interesting. Satterfield was asked about Carter Nelson on Tuesday and if he expects him back, when he expects him back. Yes, he does expect him back, and he is a tight end. So there's been some discussion. Like Holgerson mentioned that they put Carter Nelson at tight end to go back to the bowl practice thing in December, and he got a stinger like immediately. So it's like, all right, are you ready? We gave you a few months to play wide receiver, use your skill set. We saw some of the potential that he flashed during the season. And the ultimate goal, of course, with him was to make him a tight end. But then as soon as you practice that spot, like, there you are, taking a big hit. And Satterfield said on Tuesday, I believe, that Nelson 238 pounds. If I remember back to the press conference, that's where he's at right now. And they're not putting a date on when he can return. It should be this summer. I think you might expect Nebraska to be cautious with Carter Nelson and coming off of a hip surgery when preseason practice opens in August. But I would expect that he's going to be cleared, and they'll just do that they'll ease him in. Like, you don't want to throw him out and have him on the same schedule as everyone else. But I'm sure the goal is by game time. Right now, the goal is by kickoff to have him be ready to do everything.
Yeah, I guess the concern is that you are depending on some guys who are coming off of significant injuries, and we just haven't seen a lot. Like, we haven't seen Carter Nelson man down that spot for 50 snaps or something like that. And same thing with Mac Markaway, and so I would guess that there is probably a role for Heinrich Haarberg. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. And like I said, I think it probably depends on the health of the guys around him.
They're going to be creative with the tight ends. And when you start to think about it and the different skill sets, I mean, Lindenmeyer is the one guy there who can go out and play 50 reps if you need him to play 50 reps. Like, that's not a concern. But his skill set is different than Haarberg, and it's also different from I think there's Nelson, Markaway, Haarberg, Lindenmeyer. Like, it's four real. It's they're all different. So that's if you had two of them who gave you the same thing, it wouldn't be as intriguing. But because of how they all could show up on the field, I'm thinking that Nebraska ought to invest a lot of energy into being creative with that spot and creating matchup problems. Because if they're all different, the defense has got to account for all of them in different ways. I mean, you get a really athletic, versatile linebacker. Yeah, he's going to be able to handle more than one of those Nebraska tight ends. But they're problematic for even a Big Ten defense.
When we return, Mitch was at the open period of practice yesterday, and so we'll get some of his thoughts of what he saw on the other side here in the Locked On Nebraska podcast.
All right, welcome back. Final segment of this episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer with you. Get your mailbag questions in for Friday's episode. The week is moving along. We will answer questions on Friday, hear from Matt Rhule again on Saturday after what's got to be a scrimmage for Nebraska this Saturday. This is it. Next weekend's Easter, right? April 20th. So
that's right.
They're gonna take that weekend off and probably scrimmage again right before the Husker games. So I think that you might expect it on that Thursday, April 24th. But yeah, this Saturday will be the heaviest day so far of spring practice. That's the expectation, at least. So will be good to hear from Matt Rhule after that. If you got any questions about what you want to hear from the head coach or anything else that's going on in Nebraska football, Nebraska sports, big news from or at least potentially big news from the court system this week that we went over on our Tuesday podcast that could involve Nebraska's 105-man roster. Got questions about that? Let us know. Send them to us on email, lockedonneb@gmail.com. You can also hit us on Twitter, or maybe if we dive in the YouTube comments section. That's always a little bit dicey.
It's been ugly this week. We've taken it on the chin a little bit. People do not like when we talk about the crown, Mitch. So we won't, unless you ask us about it, and then we will gladly talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. There was talk about the crown after the media interviews yesterday. Seamus McKnight was back from his 10-day stay in Las Vegas.
On the throne, baby.
Yeah, he got the throne. I mean, everybody was asking him where was the crown. Like we wanted to see him bring the crown, the physical crown, to the area where we gathered, and he let us down. Didn't do that, but you don't generally spend 10 days in Las Vegas, and that's what Nebraska basketball got to do.
Oh, pain. At least you walked away with some hardware and some cash at the end of it. That's all I could say, because that's
The players did.
yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah. All right. Tuesday at Memorial Stadium and inside the Hawks Center. One interesting thing, if you care about this kind of stuff, Nebraska's got the grass practice fields torn up, or the combination of grass and turf outside, and it's going to be grass torn up because it takes time to grow grass, and right now it's still kind of cold and it's hard to grow grass in February and March, I think, is probably the most logical explanation.
You can't put grass talk. You can't, like, football players are notoriously pretty hard on grass, considering that they're gigantic and there's 100 of them. So, like, if you rip it up right now, it's going to be pretty problematic for you. You know, So that's the story.
Yeah, it's ripped up now. I've got a spot where we had a trampoline that was a casualty of the windstorm last year in my backyard. So it's a big open, we've gotten rid of it, and it's a big open circular dirt formation. And I am going to, it looks like
it's an eyesore.
It's okay. You know, it kind of looks like maybe a spaceship like a landing pad or something like that. But it needs to be sodded over. Because we have some things going on in our backyard. It's like it maybe involves like a high school graduation party coming up.
You got to make it look good. Yeah, absolutely. You got to, and you're the right guy for the job, I think.
So much like Nebraska, I can't put the grass down quite yet. Need to wait. I could probably do it now, but it wouldn't be good enough to play football on for a few more weeks. So Nebraska is half in the stadium and half in the Hawks. And that's what we got on Tuesday, where the offense went into the stadium with Matt Rhule and all the offensive coaches, and the defense was in the Hawks. I went with the offense and watched and saw Dylan Raiola and the other quarterbacks throwing no defense out there, but throwing routes. And I was impressed with the receivers. I took a look at four guys lined up on the sideline next to each other and thought, that might be Nebraska's top group of receivers right there. And it was Janiran Bonner, Nyzia Hunter, Ja'Cory Barney, and Dane Key. And I thought, yeah, it's not a bad group.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. I saw a lot of video coming out of that group yesterday, and I know we'll talk about this in a second, but I saw a lot of video coming out of the defensive line as well, just like kind of what dudes look like. Yeah, like you had hoped in the wide receiver room that the four guys really that you had just mentioned, and we mentioned Bonner yesterday as a guy we forget about. We're not going to forget about him anymore. But like you had hoped that those four guys really started to separate themselves: Key, Barney, Hunter, and then just really somebody else, I guess. And Bonner is that guy who's got some experience under his belt. Like you'd hope somebody would separate themselves, and it sounds like that is the case.
I definitely think that Cortez Mills, Isaiah Mosey, and Quinn Clark are right there, and that they're going to have chances, all three of those guys. And we may see a Barney situation with one of those freshmen where it's just, nope, there's no easing in period. You're ready to go. Nebraska can play more than four wide receivers. Like I think Da'Keel Shorts is going to want a rotation of 5, 6, maybe even 7 wide receivers. And right now, if you had 7, I think it would be the 4 that I mentioned, and then Mills, Mosey, and Quinn Clark. So that's a dynamic top 7, maybe a little low on experience. Key, Hunter, Barney, Bonner, they have experience, but a couple of them just 1 year. And then, but it's high on speed and skill, and just like a variety of body sizes in that group.
Yeah, fantastic. I
have
high hopes for the group. I mean, obviously, I think it pairs along with the offense and Dylan Raiola and all that stuff. Like you can't have one without the other, but it seems like a group that you can kind of trust at this point, especially led by Key. Like Key, I have very few reservations about.
He's a little bigger than I thought too, and I mean I've already seen him. He came into the media room a couple weeks ago, but when you see him next to the other receivers and Ja'Cory's, we know he's not a big guy, but next to Bonner and Hunter, Key doesn't. Bonner's a bigger body type, but Key looks like he has good size. Like I think he's going to be okay and thrive in the Big Ten. I went out to the offensive side mainly because I wanted to watch Matt Rhule, and I wrote about this on Wednesday in The Athletic. Like, what does it look like when the head coach is bored? Because that's what he said on Saturday, is that he told Mike Eckler he's bored at practice. And I was like, all right, so let's check it out. And yeah, Rhule's not getting into stuff. Like, he's not getting his feet dirty. He's standing in the back and just watching them operate, and he's taking care of other stuff. He's talking to people who are at practice.
He's drinking his
coffee.
Yeah.
And that's so that's what it looks like. I don't think he's really bored in the same sense that like somebody else might be bored at work, but he's staying busy. But
he's letting his coaches coach, and he's that's a little bit different. What'd you see? So I know you were over with the offense. I saw so much video from the defensive line of Terry Braden or Phil Snow, or I felt like the picture of Keona Davis, just being Keona Davis, probably popped up on my feed 9 to 12 times over the last 15 hours here. What did you take away from that group, if anything?
It was really just getting the chance to talk to people who saw them work out, because the only time I saw the defense was when they were coming out of the Hawks and into the stadium at the end of the session, that the period that we had. Then they brought everyone into the stadium, so the defense was coming out there, and Marquise Buford was warning the offensive players that they were coming. That kind of thing.
Nice.
A little Dion going on there. Although I don't think that's what he was saying. It was just the same message. Yeah, the defensive line, I think, was the stole the show a little bit in what people got to see. Braden's very active in his coaching, and it looks like the defensive line, much like the wide receivers, it looks like the defensive line has found kind of a top group in Riley Van Poppel, Elijah Judy, and Cam Lenhart. So that's great for them. But then at the same time, you have Williams Nwaneri and the aforementioned Keona Davis, and Braden is wholly invested in getting those two up to the level where they can play and contribute in important ways in 2025. They don't want to wait another year with those guys. When Rhule says we need our best 11 on the field, like, it doesn't really matter the position, we'll make it work. Or when you get into a pass rushing situation, we want our best 4 pass rushers at the line of scrimmage. Today, you would love to fast forward 6 months and see Keona Davis and Williams Nwaneri among that first 4 when they are in a 3rd and long situation.
I think so. Yeah. And
I don't know if it'll happen.
They're situational though, right? Like Van Poppel, Elijah Judy, Lenhart, the top 3 that you mentioned, like those are probably closer to every down players.
Yeah.
Nwaneri and Keona Davis, you could tell those guys on 3rd down to go pin their ears back and go sack a quarterback, right? So good to have that situational type of depth as well. And there's a lot of talk about positionless football and especially on this defense. And sounds like they have a couple of the weapons for it. Before we go, Mitch, Nebraska ball has picked up another transfer commitment.
Breaking news.
Yes, breaking news right here at the end of the show. It is Will Cooper, who played his high school basketball at Millard South a couple of years ago. He spent last year at the Air Force Academy, and now he has decided to come back home and play for Nebraska. Averaged just a little over 5 points a game last year for Air Force, where he shot. Let's see on the stats here. He shot at 30, almost 8% from 3, which is a good number.
I know Will Cooper. Huh?
Will Cooper.
I know Will Cooper. I know Will Cooper's family. Well, that's interesting. 16 points a game at Millard South. This did not know this was on the radar. He's a member of Cadet Squadron 38. He was while he was at the academy. This is the son of Todd Cooper, the former Omaha World Herald course reporter.
Cooper on course. Yeah.
Yes. Wow, that's very cool. That's very cool. So excited to see what may come of that. 6'6", like a wing or a small forward to fit into Fred Hoiberg's system. I don't know.
There's a lot of shooting on this team all of a sudden now.
He credits his dad for having the biggest influence on his sports career. I also credit his dad for having a big influence on my sports career because he hired me at the Daily Nebraskan when I was a freshman at the University of Nebraska. And
look at that
in the 1990s. So me
Mitch
and Will
Sherman,
Cooper,
Will Cooper handshake.
Yeah.
All right, there's a little news as we get out of here today. Plenty to come over the next 2 days. Once again, still get your questions in for the mailbag. And we thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez as your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level. Get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.